Ordinarily, insecurity represents the biggest threat to the citizen and the state. And you do not allow insecurity to grow and develop on the scale that it did. We have tolerated threats to the lives of citizens and their properties and the peace of this country for too long, principally because I think the quality of leadership we have enjoyed since perhaps going back to 2007, 2008 has declined. If you don't have good leaders, they don't have the capacity to detect threats, they don't have the capacity to mobilize reactions against that threat, they don't have the capacity to think through and see whether the threat is actually a cause or a symptom of a problem. And so we've tolerated too many things, and when you tolerate a threat, it develops and grows, and it mutates, and it becomes something else. It's not just the northern part of the country. Let me remind you that as far back as about maybe 12 years, 13 years, the southeast has been literally no man's territory. We have allowed the citizens there to live under all sorts of threats and intimidation. This stay-at-home thing has been in existence in the southeast for close to a decade. Where has been the Nigerian government? Look at the northern part of the country. Umaru Yar'Adua ordered shoot at sight. In 2009, during the uprising, Muhammad Yusuf's people, days of rioting, killings in Maiduguri, the military asked the president to approve shoot at sight, and he did. And Muhammad Yusuf was arrested. He was the then leader of Boko Haram. He was arrested, interrogated by the military, arrested by the military, interrogated by the military. They got all the information they needed, handed him over to the police, which promptly just shot him. Videoed the shooting and shot him, and along with other people. His people ran away.
Extrajudicial killing, more or less.
His people ran away, went underground. Now you would think a leadership that is thinking would follow these people. Said, how come Muhammad Yusuf's people all disappeared? They went underground. Apparently they underwent more thorough training, more deeper indoctrination, and they became hardened, and they became armed. Until that time they weren't armed. And they came back to Nigerian state to fight the Nigerian state. President Obasanjo and Senator Shehu Sani visited them on their own, obviously with, I'm sure, the knowledge and the support of President Jonathan. They engaged some of the leaders of Boko Haram in Maiduguri, and they asked what they wanted in order to stop this. If my memory is correct, they gave them 4 conditions. Prosecute the people who shot our leader, Muhammad Yusuf, extrajudicially. And at that time, they had been arrested. They were here in Kuje, in Abuja. Everybody knew them. They were policemen. Rebuild the markers. That was his home in Maiduguri, which had been demolished and turned into a toilet in the middle of Maiduguri. Stop harassing our families, our wives and our children, and leave us alone. We just want to preach, and we don't want to fight. 4 conditions. The administration didn't believe that those were all these people were fighting for. Down the road, a year after, President Jonathan set up a huge committee, of which I was a member, called it the Presidential Committee on Dialogue with Boko Haram, and told us, go after these people, sit with them, and resolve this problem. Just think, one side in a conflict sets up his own team, sends that team to go and meet the enemy, and says, ask the enemy what they want, and solve this problem. For what it was worth, we went. Very powerful committee. And we spent a lot of time just trying to engage these people. Eventually, what we were able to establish from that were the same 4 things that they told President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo, about 2 or 3 years later. Prosecute Muhammad Yusuf. As at the time that we were in that committee, these people were still in prison here. Rebuild the markers. The markers had not been rebuilt. Release our wives and children that you are detaining in police stations. As the time the committee was working, if you remember, between 2012, 13, 14, 15, were the high points at all the bombings here in Abuja, all over the country. So you had a leadership with a very poor reading of the situation, and quite possibly some level of corruption, because there were people who were making money from this. You had an ineffective appreciation of what the problem was. And it grew from Boko Haram. People saw an avenue. Nigerian state is weak. This is the Nigeria that would go to another people's country and solve their problem. Yes, we sent troops. We sent troops to those countries, put out their fire and come back. Yes. And yet you had a ragtag army that had transformed into a virtual real threat. It was taking over huge parts of Yobe, Borno, Adamawa, Taraba. And from then on, when you open the window, all sorts of threats come in. So, as I said, it's a combination of all three. You have poor leadership. You have a state that has become so weak because corruption has eaten it up, including corruption that affects your fighting capacity. And the collapse of quality in the people who are leading Nigeria, both in the north and in the south, continued. As we speak today, if you ask a northerner who has some knowledge, who is the leader in the north? Who? In constitutional terms, they'll tell you it's the vice president, Kashim Shettima. Yes. But what does Kashim Shettima do under this administration? I respect the man a lot, but in effect, very little. Not just him. No vice president really does much, unless the president tells him. Quality of the north and the quality of leadership in the north has tremendously declined. Its social problems, economic problems have grown, and so naturally, because all these problems, emirs and chiefs and the clerics have been compromised by a very poor political process. The north has degenerated. And it's the same thing as I began by saying, it's not just the north. There are huge parts of Nigeria where this collapse is also virtual. In the southeast, I'm very familiar with, I have a lot of people and contacts in the southeast. Tragically, two key parts of this country, the north and the southeast, have gone under. And we have a leadership that still continues to behave as if tomorrow will wake
Business
up
as usual.
with a miracle. And the north has peace, and the southeast has peace, and we will live happily ever after. And it's the wrong way of thinking. Problems that are not attended to will grow.
Brilliant. Some have opined that if this spate of kidnappings and killings, massacres, call it whatever, if they were happening in Lagos or Abuja, or both of them, that government's response would have been swifter, would have been more decisive, more proactive, even if you will. Is this correct, sir? Because it would seem that of everything you said, corruption, yes, because quite a lot, people responsible who are meant to be putting out these issues are feeding fat from it. They're benefiting immensely from it. In fact, some school of thought say strategic people in the chain of putting out these fires, would rather want it to continue, unabated. So the question again, Doctor, is that because there's some sort of lukewarmness in the response of the federal government. What do you have to say to this?
I'm reluctant to attribute a sectional approach to this, to be honest with you, because my facts here are not very strong. But what I can tell you is that there is a relationship between control of the state, control of state resources, and peace or security in particular parts of the country. When you say this, people would say, but in that case, the North should not have had the problem. You had Eradua, then 2 years, then you had Jonathan in between, and then you had Buhari for 8 years. Buhari didn't govern this country at all. And so when people say, oh, but you had your own time and Buhari was your president for 8 years, why didn't you put an end to Boko Haram and Lakurawa and the Mahmuda group that is now terrorizing Kwara and Naija State? The truth is, I think, is that generally, that's why I made the point, the quality of people who have governed this country has declined so badly between corruption and ineptitude. You had a leadership that has simply allowed the country to rot. I'm not sure that there is any part of this country which is not under one threat or the other. None, including Lagos. Lagos has its own social problems. I mean, there may not be people who are kidnapping, but Lagos, for all its wealth and everything, Lagos could be a much safer place. Ask people who live in Lagos. Ask them how they live. It's a very difficult place to live. So, economic development alone doesn't give you guarantees.
Yeah.
You may be safe in your house, but you can't step out. The bottom line is, Nigeria is in a very serious crisis because we have not had kind of leaders who will try to understand the nature of the problems. They are multifaceted, there are different types of problems. Some are limited to particular areas, some are across the country. The biggest threat is corruption. When you eat out the heart of institutions, your defense and security institutions, your leadership is corrupt. The people you are trusting to defend you are either corrupt or they become victims of corruption themselves. Your core social values have been eroded. Everybody does what they want because there are no consequences in this country. So good people become bad. And then criminals find it easy to settle in. This is where we are. And there doesn't appear to be anybody who's looking at Nigeria and saying, what will this country be in 10 years' time? If we continue on this trajectory, what would our children be like in the next 10 to 15 years? Would they have a country to live in? And the tragedy is that everybody's a victim. Nobody, no group, no section, no interest will escape the consequences of what is happening in this country now. And yet we have a leadership now that is saying, oh, we're on top of the situation. Even if we're on top of it, be patient, we'll be on top of this. 3 years ago, we elected a president who was supposed to have been intelligent, a schemer, somebody who has been in the corridors of power or who has President Tinubu. And Nigerians thought, I mean, now we see a difference. President Buhari just sat there for 8 years, never really governed, didn't assign responsibilities, never monitored how it was doing. Things got worse. Poverty levels got worse. Insecurity levels got worse. We thought Tinubu would fix this country. He hasn't. And it doesn't look like he will. And now they're asking for another 4 years.
Yeah.
And so what are they going to do different from what they've done in the past? They haven't told us. And yet they're asking Nigerians to trust them. Why should Nigerians trust anybody? And this is the most destructive question you can ask. No politician has given us a single reason to trust them. You have an opposition that is yet to tell us what they will do if they get power from President. Just tell us. You are ADC or PDP or whatever. If you trust us with power, we would do this and this and that. You can hold us against it. We will do this. Practical solutions that are based on knowledge and understanding and analysis. To fix Nigeria, you need to do this and do this and this. And it will begin by us. It will begin by us.
Now, what baffles most Nigerians, including myself, when northern leaders, the elites of the north, elected and non-elected, even socio-cultural leaders, when they talk about, politics and all of that, the common strand is identity politics. Oh, it's the turn of the North. Oh, the North will not accept if there's no Northerner, if there's no Muslim, if there's no this. But, sir, like I said, data, hard, irrefutable data. The leaders of Nigeria, as pressed at the top level, 65% of them have been from the North. So the question is, are the northern elites, because I just don't want to say governors, but northern elites, are they actually focused on eradicating poverty, taking children to school, fixing maternal infant mortality rates? Because whether we like it or not, these are the soft issues that have created this monster.
Sure.
So are northern leaders actually paying attention to this particular issue, solving this problem? holistically from the roots up?
Well, sometimes we use this word elites rather loosely.
Because a lot of them, sir.
Yes, no. But I accept your definition of northern elite. My only issue with it, you have northern elite that are in charge of power and authority. You have other elite, people like me, who mostly remain on the margins, and sometimes we criticize. Sometimes we say this is the way to go. The damage that has been done to the quality of leaders in the North between the 70s and 80s is immense. State creation has fractured the solid qualitative leadership in the North beyond any other region. The North is big, massively productive. 95% of Northerners just don't want anything. I mean, just leave us alone. We'll do our farming, we'll do all that. We don't want anything from the state. They want their children to go to school. They want their infants not to die in infancy. But basically, Northerners are hardworking, honest people. Yeah. When you see them become like this, and their leaders appear to just run away from the problems rather than stay and solve the problem, you ask yourself, what happened? What happened to the legacy of these your great rulers that were murdered in 1966, and some of your military people who did very well? Yes. What happened? How come the North has no leadership? Geopolitical engineering has damaged them. One region now has 19 states. People don't understand the implications of that. One region now has 19 states, each one with 3 arms of government. The cost of governance alone is enough to deprive these states of money to develop people. 2, the kind of people, the military bequeathed leadership, a democratic process that just literally has, that lacked quality and gravitas, same as other parts of the country. But when you have a combination of poverty that is developing and growing, and a leadership that is incapable of understanding what to do about that poverty, you have what you now see as persistent and guaranteed decline. You asked a question about identity. Identity is in Nigeria. Every group has identity issues. Every group. And this we and them is a Nigerian thing. It's not a northern thing. And Northerners have been identified as saying, oh, we and our own. It's not just Northerners. It's what defines our politics. Unfortunately, it defines it sometimes negatively. And we always tend to think if one of our own is in power, we are going to be better off. I think there's enough evidence on the ground now to show us that we're wasting our time.
Absolutely.
And we do talk to people. We say, listen, just because you have one of your own doesn't mean your group or your ethnic group, your faith, or where you come from is necessarily going to be better. 2 days ago, I was in a meeting with some very prominent persons from the southeast of the country. And during lunch, I reminded one of them who was saying, oh, you Northerners, everything is about you. You don't criticize your own people. You like it. And I reminded him, in 2009, the group of which I was a spokesman, Northern Elders Forum, engineered a collaboration here in Abuja with Fenifere, Pandef, and Ohaneze, Ndigbo, another group. And we held a press conference here in Abuja. And we told Nigerians, don't trust President Buhari with another 4 years. If you give this man another 4 years, after the mess he has made up of the first 4 years, this country will be almost irretrievable. Openly and loudly. We said so. And we led this movement. So when people accuse, the North, they always want power, they don't want to yield power, the North wants what is its. In fairness, we demand what is fair. But we're not blind to the fact that we're just like other Nigerians too. Give us a chance and we will either mess you up. Exactly. The same way that you will mess me up if I give you a chance. We share a lot more in common when it comes to the bad things. It's when it comes to the good things that you now begin to identify who else is thinking of this country and who's just thinking about his tribe. And this is the problem that we have. And in this 1 year, you would see all these things come to play. Would people line up behind the candidate because he represents the best hope for this country to survive? Or would I line up behind someone just simply because he comes from that side? And you will see it across the whole country. And this is one of our greatest failings in this country. This failure to recognize quality wherever it comes from and to say, look, my child will go to school if he is the president or the governor. My child will not go to school if this one who speaks my language and worships the God I worship will not go. It's a big challenge. If this country survives this 1 year, survives this election they are playing, and hopefully by 2027, we have a leadership that will think of this country for a change, involving all Nigerians. Maybe then we can begin the process of rebuilding this country.